Frog Thor, yeah, this is probably the best reveal in the episode. And now what we need to get is a crazy crossover movie between Throg and Loki Gator. Yeah, give the people what they want, Marvel. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking Loki Episode 5. We are here, down to just one episode left after this. It's crazy, and we got another banger of an episode. I do have to say I probably enjoyed last week's episode more because just more was revealed. And I was kind of expecting more from this episode, but I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode. I had a lot of fun. And again, I am so excited for next week's finale. Things are going down. But guys, before we get into talking about today's episode, again, episode 5 of Loki, gotta warn you, spoiler warning, because we are breaking this episode down in depth with all the spoilers and all that good stuff sprinkled in here. So you're definitely gonna want to watch this video if you've seen the episode, and if you haven't, then, I mean, probably not the best idea, but you do you. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and get into this. Before we do, of course, let me know down in the comments below, what did you think about this episode, and of course your predictions for next week's season finale of Loki. And this episode starts off right where last episode ended off, or at least where the post-credit scene did, where Loki is now in the Void. And that's what Richard E. Grant's character of classic Loki reveals to us. This is known as the Void. And also, that's Goliath. Yeah, that giant cloud creature over there. Yeah, that thing's called Goliath. Now let's get out of here and move before it eats us. So, yeah. Automatically, as soon as we get in this episode, the Lokis are on the run, stuff is going down, and of course, our main Loki that we've been following this whole series has like a million questions. I think he actually said like 700,000 questions. But he's not the only one with questions, because again, with Sylvie, she has plenty of questions as well, and that's how the episode ended off with her last week, was that she took down Ravonna Renslayer and was like, tell me everything you know. And that is exactly what happens here, except not exactly, and her plan doesn't really go as she thought it would, because first of all, we find out that Renslayer doesn't even know who created the TVA, because she just found out that the timekeepers are supposedly fake and they're all robots. So she literally has no idea, which kinda maybe takes down our Kang theory, because that was one of the big pieces of evidence, is that in the comics, Ravonna Renslayer is the girlfriend of Kang, but if she has no idea who this person is, then maybe not, although maybe they're just setting it up for the future, who knows. But another reveal we get from her is that she actually reveals that pruning doesn't actually delete anything, it actually just moves it all to the Void, both people and places. So this place, as known as the Void, is just this crazy dump of all these variants, all these random locations and buildings and artifacts and stuff that are just from all across the multiverse, which honestly sounds insanely awesome. And it's pretty cool. But of course, Sylvie and Ravonna, they actually start to kind of team up here, and they're like, Renslayer's like, I want to find out who's behind this as much as you do. And they kind of form an alliance until, boom, Renslayer takes on a little bit of a Loki characteristic here and betrays Sylvie and tricks her and brings in the TVA. But before they can take down Sylvie, she actually grabs one of the pruning sticks and prunes herself. It's a self-pruning, and Renslayer's just like, alright, yeah, the job's done, and now we can move on. But not really, because that was kind of Sylvie's whole plan, because now she knows that when she does that, she's trying to reunite with Loki, and that's exactly what she does. But before we get into that, we do get a little catch-up and a little explanation from all these various other Lokis here in the Void. Like, for example, we find out that Kid Loki, his Nexus event that sent him here is that he killed Thor, which is insanely awesome and really, really cool. And speaking of Thor, we actually get a Thor Easter egg here. Actually, a couple, because as we're panning the camera down underground to this base of operations of these Lokis, we do see some stuff in the minerals, in the soil there, with not only seeing Mjolnir, of course Thor's hammer, but we also get to see a jar with Throg, aka Frog Thor, in this jar, which of course, is what I was referencing at the beginning of this video, which is another insanely awesome thing here, because we heard, I think there was a leak or something that Throg was going to be in this series, and I'm not sure if we're going to see him show up again, or if that was it, because supposedly there's like a Lego figure of Loki with a Throg accessory or something like that, so I don't know if we're going to see him pop up again. I hope we do, because it's a really cool character, but this is the live action debut of Throg, so who knows? The way they're setting up all this stuff in the future with Kang and the Young Avengers and all that stuff, maybe they're setting up some pet Avengers with Throg. Who knows? Throw in some Loki Gator with us, and you got it covered. But then also when we're just chilling in this Loki HQ, I love how Kid Loki is just like sitting on his throne with a juice box and everything. That's hilarious. And boastful Loki, he actually reveals that he took down both Iron Man and Captain America and got all 6 Infinity Stones. But then of course classic Loki is just like, nah, you're just lying. And again, who knows if he is or not, but it's a classic thing for Loki to do. So that's the thing in this episode. You never know when they're lying and when they're not, and when you can actually trust them and when you can't. But then classic Loki actually reveals his backstory, which is really, really interesting, and got my brain wheels turning here, because he mentions that when he took on Thanos in Avengers Infinity War, he faked his own death. He used a projection of himself to take on Thanos, as we saw our MCU version do in Avengers Infinity War, but he was actually hiding as a piece of debris, and he was able to escape. So that means that could totally be a possibility for the Loki we saw die in Infinity War. This has actually been a big theory that, hey, maybe it was just a projection that he used, and maybe that is the case. Maybe the big reveal of this big villain Loki that's behind the TVA, that is the big bad villain of the series, is that Loki from the beginning of the MCU that supposedly died in Infinity War but didn't really. Maybe this is a foreshadowing of that. Who knows? I don't really know for sure. Just a theory, but I mean, they said it for a reason, and I'm really interested to see if that's the case, which would be really, really cool to see, so I'd love to see that. But, of course, Loki is like, alright, I'm done dealing with you, I gotta get out of here so I can get reunited with Sylvie, the love of my life, even though she's kind of like my sister, and also like myself, but I'm in love with her. So, he's on his way out, when all of a sudden he opens the door, and all of a sudden President Loki is there. Another Loki variant that we've seen in the trailers, and we weren't sure whether that was going to be an actual Loki variant, or if it was just going to be our Loki just in the outfit. But no, it is a Loki variant, and he's got a whole gang here. And turns out boastful Loki, of course, very Loki of him, he actually exposed their location, and apparently he made a deal with President Loki that was like, alright, if I give you our location, then I can have your army and all this stuff. Very classic Loki, but then President Loki betrayed him, and then every Loki just ends up betraying every other one. Turns out into this giant Loki war, so we got a cool fight scene here, which, by the way, we did get to see Kid Loki and Loki Gator actually reenact Get Help, of course, from Thor Ragnarok, so I thought that was a pretty cool reference as well. But after this Loki battle's over, of course, we have just our 3 Lokis remaining, with Classic Loki, Kid Loki, and our main Loki. And meanwhile, we've seen that Sylvie now is in the Void, and she actually runs into Mobius. So yes, our boy Mobius, Owen Wilson, he's alive, he's good, he's doing fantastic. Wow. And yeah. So happy to see. Definitely expected. I mean, last week's episode when I first saw him die, I was like, no, not Mobius. But then as soon as we saw Loki die, I was like, alright, yeah, there's no way Mobius is dead too. So yeah, just as we expected, he is alive. He's here in the Void. He and Sylvie team up, and they end up meeting up with our 3 Lokis here, where they are now going to try and go ahead and take on Alioth and try and figure out who is truly behind the TVA, who created the Time Variance Authority. And of course we get a few little moments in here, like that little cuddle session between Loki and Sylvie, ooh la la. And of course also Mobius actually ends up leaving. He he has a temp pad with him, and I think he goes back to the TVA. I don't know if it was really that clear, but I'm pretty sure he goes back to the TVA. We never actually see him. That was the last time we saw him in the episode, but he's going back to get revenge and basically drop the bombshell and reveal that the TVA is a fake and it's been lying to everyone this whole entire time. So while he goes off and do that, again, we have our Lokis taking on Goliath, and at first it's just Sylvie and Loki, because classic Loki and Kid Loki are like, no, it's a suicide mission, and we're not going to deal with that. But classic Loki does actually end up coming back to save the day. He actually ends up creating this crazy illusion of Asgard, which was really cool to see. And he does actually end up sacrificing himself as well, which, of course, is really sad, but at the same time, going into this episode, at times, I was like, alright, if one of these characters is going to die, probably it's going to be classic Loki, because Kid Loki, there's no way he's going to die, because we need him in the future for the Young Avengers, and classic Loki, there's really not a role for him in the future, and it was really just kind of like a cool reference and Easter egg for that character in this series. Just seeing Loki in that classic comics accurate outfit was awesome, but again, there's not really a future for that character in the MCU, but still a cool character that I enjoyed seeing here. Richard E. Grant, of course, is amazing as always, but Loki and Sylvie do find success with their plan, and they do eventually enchant Goliath, and this is when they reveal, well, this giant cloud just like parts in the middle, and it is revealed this giant castle, which we assume is the home or the base of operations, or whatever you want to call it, of the true creator of the Timekeepers and the TVA and all that good stuff. And then that leaves the only question as, who is it? And as always, it's really the two main options. This could be Kang the Conqueror, or this could be another Loki. And these last couple episodes here, especially after last week's episode, I've been going hard with the Kang gang, but after this episode, I don't know. I feel like it's starting to feel like another Mephisto. I remember last year, or no, it was actually just a couple months ago, but with Mephisto and WandaVision, of course, that was the big theory going around, that he was going to be the big bad villain by the end of the series. But once we got to the point where it was like, there's only 2 episodes left, 1 episode left, we were like, yeah, no, Mephisto's not showing up, and there's only 1 episode left, so I don't know if they'd introduce Kang the Conqueror just for this 1 episode. It could be something totally where we have one villain revealed as the creator of the Time Variance Authority, and then it's revealed in the post-credit scene or something that Kang was responsible for that, or it could be something very similar to Thanos in the first Avengers movie, where he's like, fine, I'll do it myself, and all that stuff, so we could see something like that, but at the moment, I don't think it's Kang that's behind this. It would be cool. I'd love to be wrong. I feel like there might be a reference, or at least a name drop, or something like that, or maybe even a post-credit scene. But I do think that probably the option that makes most sense is that the big bad villain here is going to be revealed to be another Loki. And again, as I was talking about earlier in this video, it could possibly even be that Loki that we followed for the first part of the MCU in the Infinity Saga, the Loki that died in Infinity War. Maybe, as classic Loki was talking about, maybe that Loki didn't die either. Maybe he faked his death just like classic Loki, and maybe he went back to his villainous ways and somehow created the TV. I don't really know exactly how it worked, but it makes so much sense with what they've set up in the show, with all these Loki variants and the TVA being so obsessed with Lokis. I think that's the option that makes the most sense. Again, I'd love to be wrong and go back to Kang Gang, but I don't think that's going to be going on here. But of course, guys, let me know in the comments below, what did you think about this episode? All your thoughts and theories for next week's episode. Fortunately, no post-credit scene here. Kind of disappointing, but again, next week's episode is the season finale of Loki. Big stuff is going to go down. We're finally getting that reveal. Theories, thoughts, predictions, everything in the comments below. You guys gotta let me know what you're thinking here. And guys, of course, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.